Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is, first off, it's fun to just break the hiatus for a little bit. We're still technically on the hiatus. We will not be releasing new episodes just yet. Yes, I did have the baby. Leia was born earlier this month, or in June, I should say. Everything is healthy. She's wonderful. We're still adjusting to the sleep deprivation of the schedule. But when our good friends of the show, Alan and Will, the creators of Pocus Hocus, said, hey, we are launching a Kickstarter for issue number 4, and it's starting on June 28th. We said, well, I know we're on break, but we can take a little bit of time out of our busy lives to chat with these fantastic guys. So Alan and Will, thank you so much for coming back on the show. Can't wait to chat with you about Pocus Hocus.
No, we are so excited to be here, and it's kind of followed suit like we always do. As soon as we have a Kickstarter kind of date in mind, we immediately message you guys to see what y'all are doing.
And I was very, very grateful to you for setting all this up. So for those of you who don't know, Pocus Hocus is a horror comedy indie comic that has done fantastically well on Kickstarter. If you haven't already, you can go listen to the first 2 times that we've had Alan and Will on the show. You can go back on our website, capesonthecouch.com, or just scroll through our archives and find those episodes to get yourself up to speed. So we're just going to do a quick recap of issues 1 through 3. Pocus Hocus is a magician who made a deal with a demon to acquire authentic, real magical powers. Problem is that the demon that he sold his soul to isn't exactly the most upstanding as far as even demon standards would be considered. And when Pocus decides that he's had enough of this deal and he wants to try to reacquire his soul, the demon's like, about that. And so as we enter, or as we're kind of getting into issue 3, Pocus and his assistant Emily have entered hell because they are seeking souls to get Pocus out of his contract with the demon. So Emily turns out to be incredibly proficient with knives. That is something that I did not see coming when, I started reading the issue. And I remember when we spoke last time, we talked a little bit more about Emily and how issue 2 and to some extent the beginning of issue 3 really began to flesh out Emily as a character. And even though she is Pocus's assistant, technically, she is very much her own independent character. And so if I remember correctly, we spoke a little bit about defining her a little bit more. But, as we're going through this, Alan, Will, what was sort of the genesis for giving her some of that, shall we say, weapon proficiency in terms of an action sequence, and also just giving us a little bit more about Emily?
So we actually hinted at it in issue 2. And that was something that we did intentionally in her artwork. I think that was one of the few notes we made for Brian, where we're like, this has to be in here. Because usually we're really lenient with a lot of stuff. Whenever Pocus first comes back to the theater after the demon approaches them, Emily's actually spinning knives in the waiting room, waiting for Pocus to come in. So that was something fun that we kind of threw in because we knew what was going to happen in issue 3 at that point. So we loved that idea. But Will, do you want to go ahead and take this one through?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so creatively speaking, I've noticed a lot of times I try to trust my intuition, when something comes to me, and then analyze it later, And this was one of those things where we talked about what weapons would they use if they were in this scenario, or not what they use, but would she use, and how would they fight together? And one of the just knives for some reason, throwing knives. But I think that just that instant, just that detail alone kind of gives the reader subconsciously more information about her personality and her character. Because in my mind, she's someone who's, struggled to get where she is right now. And she's performed in a lot of prior to magic shows, probably like sideshows and things like that. And that kind of could even, I think, give like a subconscious clue to kind of like her history and add that much more to her personality. So
yeah, because whenever we were always trying to be practical in this I say practical in this world that we've made, right? But we're always wanted to be practical, and it's like, well, what would Emily use? Well, she'd probably use knives, because we're thinking of her and Pocus doing various things on stage, and there's the typical magic trope of the assistant throwing knives at the magician,
yeah.
and stuff like that. So we're like, okay, well, that just makes sense. She would have them on her. So we didn't want anything, too crazy. Like, we didn't want her pulling out like a samurai sword, or anything like that. Like, we wanted just something what we felt was grounded for her character.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a show not tell thing. And I did actually forget about the spinning knives at the end of issue 2. So thank you for reminding me. I'm going to have to, I didn't go back. Apologies. I didn't go back and reread 1 and 2. I read issue 3, and then I read the preview of 4 that you sent us. But, it's the kind of thing I'll go back and reread, issues 1 and 2 after I get off. And then inevitably I'll kick myself and go, God, why didn't I ask them about this too? I'm sure there's something that I missed. The other thing is, and again, I'm trying not to do too spoilery, even though 3 is out for the folks that may be listening to this for the first time and will be able to pick up issue 3 through the Kickstarter. Demons work kind of like zombies in The Walking Dead. That they can't smell you if you're covered in the blood. I thought that was a nice little touch, because I don't know if that was the inspiration for it, but at least from my perspective, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, okay, that tracks. That's
no, honestly, no. We thought so. I guess I'll go ahead and just talk about a scene that we have in issue 3, because I love talking about this now that we can actually say it.
Yeah.
And Will, I could kiss your brain for this. But so what we did was we always map out each issue with our story beats. Like, first we map out the art, and then once we finally decide, okay, well, we're happy with this, then we map out our story beats for each issue. So we have a demon box in issue 2. That's practical for how we get to hell. Wonderful. Now, what's the catalyst that moves them through without it just being blind, just action running into stuff? Because we still wanted, of course, we wanted to have some action in it, but we wanted our action to have meaning. We didn't want to put action in there for action's sake. And we obviously knew how it was ending, but we didn't have a B yet. We had our A and our C. And then Will had a joke. He said, Alan, whatever we do, I want to put in a joke where they run into some demons and kill them and wear their skin. And then I said, Will, that's perfect. So here's what we can do. And then we married the whole thing together. And I was like, then we can actually use that blood to cover Emily. Because as you guys will notice, Emily's in collar because she still has her soul. So that's how we built issue 3 around a joke.
Yeah.
That Will had.
Really, if you think about it, and I don't think that we even this was even intentional. It's something we realized when we went back and we were editing the script and stuff. But like, yeah, the 2 jokes are, I mean, there's that one obviously, which is pretty dark, and then there's the one where the cat appears.
Yeah.
That was also something that I'm really, just not to gloat or anything, but I'm really proud of how we kind of married some of that stuff together, which is what made it so fun to write. I mean, I had issue 4, of course, is a blast to write, and I think it's really going to the readers are really going to be blown away. But it was kind of like that point in between, like 2 and 4, where like 3 fell, and it was just like, let's just have fun. And so that's kind of what we did with issue 3. And issue 4, of course, it was a blast to write as always, but we got a little bit more serious with it in the sense that we were like, okay, this is like, we need to like step up the game, and we need to really be sure and keep this story moving forward. But 3 was just so much fun. Something about it.
Yeah, the my babies, that cracked me up. And then the other thing I was going to ask, and because I don't remember if this was a thing in the Kickstarter, but the demons, or shall I say the victims of the cat, and the moral of the story is always be nice to animals, even cats. The faces seemed so specific. And correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm wildly out, off base here. Was one of the Kickstarter things like you could be drawn into the comic because that's kind of how they looked. They looked like they were very specific individual people that were turned into demons.
Yeah. So issue 1 Kickstarter, we had it. So that's for some people for issue 2. Issue 3, we just pulled some people we knew and then threw them in there. So yeah, some of them are definitely on the nose.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I thought the same thing. I'm like, okay, these are very specific people, and I'm very interested in what the context was.
Yeah, it's just we just thought it was funny.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I couldn't remember, but I was like, they're definitely specific people that you then just like drew with horns on their head because
well, I mean, we talked early on too about like, the way we did the demons. We wanted each one to sort of have a personality and be differentiate. And there's a lot of that coming up in issue 4 that Alan and we invented these characters and really, but with stuff like issue 3, sometimes when you get the backers and you can have the resemblances and things like that, it almost kind of it does the job for you. It's like, okay, well, we know what the personality is and we know, what the demon looks like. And it just helps with that. It adds to that a lot, I think.
Yeah, because I know the scene you're talking about or the sequence that you're referring to in issue 4, because, we've seen the preview. So I know what you're talking about where it's like, well, this one and then this one and then this one and then this one. So it definitely gives you that opportunity to, as you said, play with the personalities and create those opportunities for folks. But then again,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, again, just going back to the cat real fast. That was another thing where I was like, okay, I guess I knew, sort of like Chekhov's gun, that when we saw it the first time, I was like, oh, and he's really nice to it. This is going to come back later. I wasn't exactly sure how, and I wasn't entirely clear if it was going to be within the same issue, or if it would just, if it would pop up again in a later issue. But I was like, we're going to see him. Oh, okay. And then as soon as, everybody's like, basically, oh, shit. That's kind of the collective reaction to the sight of the cat.
Credit Dave, our letterer, because initially when we wrote that part, we just threw in a bunch of gulps, gasps, stuff like that, just because we thought it was funny. And then that's when Dave wrote "Sweet Baby Satan" and put it over top, and we're just like, leave it. It's perfect. Yeah. He's like, I thought it needed something, and we're like, that's better than anything we could have ever written.
Yeah, sometimes those little touches, they just make everything that much better. Yeah, the "Sweet Baby Satan."
Yeah.
Now I'm picturing James Cromwell in Star Trek. Right. Baby Jesus. And then of course issue 3 ends with the demon sort of being like, oh, you're here. Which for listeners, by the way, who caught episode 150, just as a little sidetrack, the patrons of issue 150, you actually got to hear the demon and Pocus in our long skit that you got to hear.
Yeah, I
sort of created them.
Away.
Yeah, we didn't want to tell people ahead of time because we thought that's one of those like you really need to know us. And then the whole point, well, not the whole point, but part of why we did 150 the way we did, in hindsight, because I know I wasn't thinking this in the moment, is this is a great opportunity for people to jump in and especially, a lot of those characters, but then I'm sure there were some people like, wait a minute, what is this?
Yeah, and so when we brought Duck to hell, with Spawn and everything, I was like, ooh, who else is in hell?
Yeah.
Focus in the demon. So it's not entirely canonical, but maybe it could be like now as of issue 3, it could be canonical. But it was just one of those things, and Emily's not there, but like whatever. But it was just one of those things where I was like, you know what? And then I made it for the patrons only. So for all of our patrons, you can go ahead and check that out if you didn't already. And if you're not a patron, you can go ahead and subscribe. And you can hear there's a lot more additional stuff in 150 over the course of that story. But like I said, I was like, well, this is a perfect opportunity. And I think I texted Alan and I was just like, yeah. And I sent him the uncensored, like the full Patreon version, because I was like, about halfway through, you're going to hear 2 voices that I don't know if I exactly voiced them the way that you had written them or how you hear them in your head, but
it was still just that. Can't thank you guys enough. Like it's awesome. I'm speechless. Like it's great.
Well, you're very welcome. Very welcome.
Yep.
It was a pleasure to do that. So let's move on to issue 4 now. And again, so we talked a little bit about issue 3, and I did my best to avoid major spoilers for the folks that still haven't read it. Issue 4, Doc and I obviously have had an opportunity to read the fantastic preview, which is definitely not going to stop us from still picking up the Kickstarter and backing it, obviously. Suffice to say that screws starting getting put to characters. We see a lot more pressure being put on Pocus and then also the demon. Things kind of come to a head, but there's not a resolution. And so now walk us through that again without spoilers, but how you manage to continue to address certain things while still continuing to up the stakes.
So this is going to be very hard to kind of dance around, right? So I'll do my best. Will and I will probably be speaking really vaguely for the next little bit. So, in other words, back the Kickstarter and enjoy. So we wanted the demon whenever they finally met again. And this time it wasn't a
surprise.
It wasn't a surprise. You're going to do this for me.
Right.
Like Pocus went to the demon himself. We wanted to still try to keep the reader on their toes because there's only so much you can do with the demon holding something over his head.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to try to keep that fresh and exciting. And then we threw in certain elements that you guys have already seen that are going to lead us to a whole nother just world and destination.
Yeah, reveal.
And so we wanted to treat issue 4 kind of like the end of season 1. So whenever you guys see the next Kickstarter for Pocus that's going to come out, it's actually going to be 2-1. So chapter 5 will be a 2-1. So which is another reason why we wanted to also include a trade paperback on this campaign too, because the trade paperback has issues 1 through 4 in it. That was something that Will and I talked about early on, where we never wanted to. We already knew that we had a trade paperback in mind, so we didn't want to reveal it whenever we launched issue 5. It just didn't sit right with us. You're making people pay separate for individuals if we already knew we were going to have a collective work. So that's if that answers your question at all. Will, do you want to talk about some?
Yeah, well, no, I was just going to say, I think that maybe a good way to kind of summarize it is that, like, when we started writing this, we one of the things we talked about was that we could very easily, if we're not careful, fall into this trap where like every single issue is like a one-trick pony, and it's just about like battling for the soul or something. And so we were like, okay, we want to take this to different levels and different layers and things like that, move the story in new directions. Of course, let each arc have its day in the sun, but that's a big reason for that. And I hope that I also believe that the readers will be pleasantly surprised when they get to the end of issue 4. And rather it being like a situation of like, oh, that didn't, work out like I thought it would. It's a situation of like, oh, we're in. There are totally new stakes now. That to me is really what drives the story forward, especially if you're doing something in sequential, anything sequential, comic book series, TV show. It just that sort of process lends itself really well to that.
Yeah, that was something that we talked about initially because after 3 was done. Will and I are our own worst critics. We went back and reread issue 4 and we're like, man, I hope people like this because we were afraid we hit our peak with issue 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started getting the pages back for 4 and we're like, oh, thank God. We're very happy.
That worked. I mean, I think we were both a little nervous and not because we knew it was like we knew it had to be like the final part of this arc. So we were like, man, this has to be it. We have to give the reader something really good. And, of course, there's a lot that goes into that. We have a script, of course, but then we get pages back and the artwork and the lettering and colors add so much to it. When we started getting the pages back for it, we were like, this is really amazing. And it does top issue 3, I think, in many different ways.
Yeah, that you guys are really weaving a tapestry here. This is a situation where I in hindsight, looking at it, I can see how this comes together. But as I'm reading, it's rare for me. I'll be very honest with you, and Anthony knows this about me. I'm one of those people, and I know. Don't worry, I'm not gonna create spoilers. I'm one of those people, though. I will go as far ahead as I can, even if it's like some story that has like tons and tons of copies and whatever. I will just dive in and find out all the information ahead of time, which kind of spoils it for myself. I don't care. With this, and just organically, I can see how it's developing. I'm like, oh, this is what people experience. Wow, I haven't had this in a long time in terms of that anticipation and not quite expecting things. Like I'm usually good at picking out when something's going to happen, and you guys are really doing a great job. Once again, like in hindsight, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. But in the moment, if I'm just reading that particular issue, I'm like, oh, okay, we really are taking it to a level I didn't think it would go. So, kudos to
Will,
you
we're doing our
guys.
jobs.
That is what I was about to say is that is one of the best compliments I think we've received for me personally.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because so Alan can attest to this. Alan and I have a big I can't do one of those like diagram circle things, but like there's a big central area of focus where it's like we like all of these the same movies, media, we geek out over it, we get really excited. And then there are other sides to that where it's like maybe it's like, okay, I like some of these other things over here, and then Alan likes some of these other things over here. And a while back we had movie nights where we would show each other like different movies that neither one of us had seen. And I made Alan, maybe much to his dismay, watch Adaptation. And when Adaptation was over, I was like, the reason, Alan, why this is one of my favorite movies is because it is so insane. Like, I have no idea what is going to happen like in the next frame. And to me, that's so exciting when you're a consumer or when you're a reader or viewer or anything. So that's a huge compliment. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah, you guys, like I said, do fantastic work in keeping things moving forward while still, as I said, you address certain parts of the story and you get resolution on certain things while still at the same time going, oh, but this is where it's heading next, along those lines. And again, I'm not going to say too much by way of spoilers, but we're introduced to some new characters in Hell.
Oh, I can't wait for people to see them. We were so
one
happy.
of the creepiest character designs I have ever seen. And I would say Guillermo del Toro would be very proud of you.
Are we speaking about the thing that you guys probably read in the later pages?
Yes. Yes. Yes, not the demon.
We can talk about, okay, so there is a tree monster that is actually in the preview for the Kickstarter that some people do get to see.
And it's
The tree monster is horrifying, and I'm not going to take anything off of that. No. I'm talking about later.
Yeah. That was actually, Will and I were very honest with where we find a lot of the inspiration, which I think helps us. We're also imaginative with how we approach certain things, which, I'm not trying to sound like we're bragging or anything, but Brian has his Instagram account, and Will showed me it, and we were looking through it, and he was doing this was like 2 Octobers ago or something, and he was trying to draw a monster a day for Halloween, and he had this one monster design. I was like, I really like that. Let's use that for something. And we kept it in our back pockets, and then we brought it to life here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned Guillermo del Toro, because we've talked about del Toro a few times in various interviews. And if anyone was reading this series and going, I probably not, but if anyone was reading this series and going, del Toro influence, they're going to get it in issue 4, because there's there's a lot. And I mean, that was like a lot of fun to do. It was challenging too, because I mean, it's new for myself, to design demons, but or help with that. Man, it was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, I was going to ask who was responsible primarily for that design. Is that something where the two of you as the writer say, I want something that looks like this, or is this, the artist saying, you basically say that I want this very creepy looking character? I don't know to what extent you go through the descriptions, and then how much of that is the artist saying, I'm just going to take it and run.
Yeah, I think most of this was Alan.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Wasn't the idea for this character? That was mostly
yeah.
all
So
you, right?
what I tried to do with this one, because like I said, Brian's drawing for this character just completely blew us away whenever we looked at it. So we wanted to flesh it out, and obviously we had to redesign a couple things to make it fit into our world that we have. Another thing too, we always like to try to bring in culture as well to our comic because we feel like it gives it more life. So when you guys read the dialogue for this character, there's gonna be some words in there you don't recognize, and it's actually Tagalog. Our artist Brian is Filipino, and English is a second language. So whenever we were working on this character, whenever it speaks, we were wanting to try to. I'm not sure what the word is, but Spanglish in a way,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So except it's Tagalog. So you're going to see some words in there that are thrown in, and then we didn't want to exactly translate them, like have like a little asterisk at the bottom. We wanted to just use context clues as you're reading, so that way you don't really need to look it up. So it's just kind of a cool touch that we thought. And,
Yeah.
we just wanted to just bring it to life a little bit more.
Yeah, that's like another other like dimension.
Just another layer to the character.
Yeah. But
Nice,
when Alan,
nice.
like we talked about this particular character, and Alan just kept coming up with like insanely good ideas for it. And I don't know, Alan, if you've ever seen the movie Scrooged with Bill Murray, but
I have, but years ago. Yeah.
I can't talk about it because it gives everything away. But there's a part in Scrooged where there's a similar, sort of.
That's oh my gosh, you're digging into my memory banks here, man. Now that I wouldn't have thought of that. Now that you mention it, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably haven't seen that movie in like 30 years. So
where
I'll go back and rewatch it this Christmas.
Yeah, I swear we're getting this like from our subconscious, like just from like films we've watched that we might not even be aware of when we're writing it. But I mean, that's where it feels like it comes from sometimes. That's why I was curious if you'd seen Scrooged or if you were a big fan of that one.
Yeah, I don't even remember it if I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked at the character design a couple of different times because every time I went back to look at her, it's not much of a spoiler, but every time I went back to look at her, I was catching something else. And so it was just like, it just kept getting creepier with every little thing that I noticed, because any one of those things would have been like, the combination of all of those various things. And it's very funny that you use the description "flesh it out" because there's very little of that. I think with respect to this character, just the compilation of all of those design components made for something just incredibly creepy. And like I said, I would love to see, speaking wildly, whatever, if this ever gets adapted into something, either like animated or live action, what have you, to see how someone would take that incredibly grotesque design and say, we're going to make this work with motion, I think would just amp up the creepy level, like beyond, like well past 11.
And for a little tease for everybody, though, this character that we're talking about is actually on the cover of issue 4. It's on the main cover. It's at the top looking through. Just so
okay.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So we see a little bit. Also, let's just play around with this idea for a minute. Because we're seeing this character and how this character would be visualized. I'm assuming probably we're all thinking, like Guillermo del Toro, like live action, that would be wild. A really crazy stop motion animation or something would be wild. Hear me out on this. Julie Taymor puppets on Broadway.
Oh boy.
like just some kind of like crazy, like Lion King-esque.
All right. It's definitely past your bedtime. We're going to go ahead and just cut you off.
Yeah.
Man.
I don't know. I'd love to see that.
I was thinking more like an Avenue Q.
Well, I was going to say, that. Oh boy.
So Kickstarter incentives for this, we've spoken about this the last 2 times y'all have been on. You have some fantastic incentives. There's a whole slew of alternate covers. You go like full 90s with the metal holofoil type, I don't remember exactly what it is, but there's the metallic covers. Horus in Hell. As a story, as a little Kickstarter incentive. I read that, and just thought, this is wonderful, especially the last 2 pages. I was like, okay, because it's just a beautiful little short tale.
Yeah.
But those last 2 pages, I was like, this is amazing. And it was exactly as long as it needed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet I needed more. It was one of those weird things where I was just like, it's exactly as long as it needs to be. And yet I need more of this. Just like conceptually, I tip my hat to the two of you. Where did that story come from?
So Kit Wallace, who has been around since day one of Pocus, and we cannot thank him enough for just the art that he's provided for us. He's done variant covers for issues 1, 2, 3, and 4. Kit is actually responsible, really, for the genesis of Horus, I feel like, because we got the cover for issue 1 back, and we loved that little bunny that was on there, and we also had a rabbit that was already in the comic that Pocus was, pulling out of his ear and, magically just making it pop into people's hands and stuff like that. So we're like, let's expand on this. And the script for issue 2 was actually already done, and we didn't even have Horus in there. So we went back and actually added Horus in before we started drawing it. And people have responded really well to Horus. And it's so funny when we talk to people, we're like, so what do you like about it? And they're always like, Horus. And we're like, that's the character we spent the least amount of time on.
Well, yeah, first. Now I'd say, at first, definitely. But now I'd say he's almost like he's part of the gang now. He's stuck going anywhere.
Oh, he's definitely not going anywhere. So Kit, he loves Horus, and he actually asked me, he's like, hey, if you ever want to do anything with Horus, I'm busy, but let me know ahead of time and maybe we can do something. And I was like, okay, perfect. So he seemed really adamant about it. And then Will and I got together, and with Kit's type of art, we obviously like to let it breathe. Kit is a very show, tell a little, because he loves to use these beautiful bubblegum collars, we'll say. And he is just wild, and all the work he's done with Good Boy and Mr. Easta, his stuff is just like chef's kiss. So whenever I was talking about with Will, it's like, well, we don't really need to put too much in here. We just need enough really to let the visuals tell the story, and then let Horus say what he needs to say, and then that's it. The jokes are really going to come through in the drawings. And Will, it took us maybe 45 minutes to write this one. This was our shortest one.
That one was a short writing session. And we were laughing so hard. But it was one of those things where we as we started noticing Horus becoming more and more of a major player in the series, we were like, okay, let's talk about some things that we could potentially do with this. And then one thing that was discussed was what's his backstory? And so we had a lot of fun, a lot of fun talking about different potential backstories for him. And finally, it got to the point where we landed on this particular story, just because it's short, sweet, and to the point, and it's a lot of fun. It's hilarious. And when we were writing it, we made it a point to limit the dialogue because
we were still in tears. Writing this thing. I hate to admit that, but we were cracking ourselves up, and I hope that really comes through with this with the ridiculous stuff that we did.
Yeah, because honestly, reading through it, it was in my brain once again, which I'll admit is a little weird. It was like, well, what else would you think would happen? Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, we got it. Thank you. Question answered.
This episode, this issue rather, this little story, to me, between a combination of the artwork and the storytelling, this is Scotty Young meets Monty Python.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We actually have our Monty Python reference in it.
We do. I was adamant about that reference too. We're doing what we're doing one, at least one. We have to.
The artwork to me it's very much to me of that Scotty Young style, and I'm sure Kit will obviously, give all credit to Scotty, but just the way that story is told. And like you said, with the bright colors, the storytelling, and just the way it all merges together is gloriously violent, but in a very fun way.
It was funny because whenever we first wrote it, I think the line that cracked us up the most, and it wasn't even a funny line, because I think both of us subconsciously knew exactly where we were going. It was after Horus is pulled out of the ear in the first page and dropped on the ground. We zoom in on him, and it says, "It wasn't always this way." And then we both were just dying after that point because we both knew it was about to just. I think it was just the dynamic between the first page and then immediately going to the second page.
Well, and that's what it is, and it's just the way it's drawn and the way it's presented visually. You don't need a whole lot of dialogue. You don't need to beat the reader over the head with it because it's apparent from just, as I said, the visual presentation. I have the PDF up right now as I'm looking at. It wasn't always this way, and then it just sort of zooms into the eye, and then the eye turns into the reflection, and we were taken into the flashback. And I was just like, it's beautiful, just the way that it was presented. So thank you, for including that. I can't wait to have a copy of that formally with the Kickstarter. The other incentive is, which is completely unrelated to Pocus Hocus, Grandma Chainsaw.
Yay!
Which, when Alan and I were texting a while ago about just whatever, and he mentioned the words Grandma Chainsaw, and he sent me, was it like concept art?
Yeah,
or
it was just
something?
black and whites. We didn't really have anything
Black
yet.
and whites. It was like 2 pages. And I was like, holy shit, I need this immediately. And I need to show this to Doc because he's going to lose his shit. I was like,
yes.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Where did this up tale come from in your heads? Because Pocus Hocus has some crazy stuff in it, but and I don't know full well where Grandma Chainsaw is going, but Pocus Hocus has there's some humanistic stuff there. Grandma Chainsaw, I'm looking at this going, oh, this is you're just leaning in on this. Where did this come from, dare I ask? And how many drugs were you on when you came up with it?
No drugs,
and
actually.
Can you share some?
Well, I'm sure that Alan has a lot to say about this. It was the title. There's just something about it. Like, this is the first and foremost. This is the first thing I've ever worked on where you just say the title and it's it's over. Everybody is just nuts.
Exactly.
And I love that. I've never had that experience before. I don't even have to tell them what it's about. What do you write? Do you write? You write comic books? Yeah. Well, what do they call it? Grandma Chainsaw. It's immediately, you know what it's about. So.
High concept title.
Yeah, definitely. And that was all Alan. That was his baby. That was his idea. And then when he called me and told me about it, I was like, let's go. Absolutely. I was so ready for this. I wanted to work on a slasher for so long. And not just any, this was different because it's not just any slasher. This is completely do whatever the hell you want, go crazy slasher. And that's just right up my alley. So there's as we're going forward and as we're writing it, there are countless horror movie references that we're coming up with, and we're having a blast doing it. And it's just going to be a really fun, insane bloodbath. If you like The Evil Dead and films of that nature, maybe even a little crazier like Hausu and stuff like that, or any slashers, of course, you're going to love this. It's a great series.
All right, so here's what happened. So I guess personal backstory. I was raised by my grandparents. You wouldn't believe it reading this, right? But I've always had a soft spot for the geriatric population. I'm actually in home health and everything, and that's really all I deal with. I really do have a soft spot for them. But being raised around that, there's certain things that you find funny about that generation versus my generation, right? And just the certain battle between new and old that always seems to be going on in the world. And I was just thinking about it, and I was just like, I don't know. I drive a lot for work, so I have a lot of windshield time, and that's why I'm always thinking about Pocus stuff. And then just what else Will and I could be doing, just anything crazy. And then the idea was just like, well, you know what? What if we do a short series, like a little anthology, and we just have some crazy stories in there because we both have that horror itch that we're trying to scratch. And then it was originally called Grandma Buzzsaw. Mm-hmm. And it was just going to be like an 8-page story about this grandma that killed people in her basement. And then they hear someone knocking on the door, and it was her grandson at the top of the steps. And she comes up to prepare dinner for the family. And it's this nice, beautiful suburban home, like whatever you would think. And we just thought that was funny. And then it led to Grandma Chainsaw. And I was that I called Will. I said, let's not do that. Let's make it a slasher. Let's just do a I don't want to call it stereotypical, but it does kind of have the stereotypical tropes that it follows. We start off with a kill just to show this is what you're in for, buckle up, get ready. And then, we have our unsuspecting group that's heading to a certain destination. And what I will say about it, because we already have it mapped out for where we want to go with it, you guys are not, there's no way you're going to be able to see what's happening.
No, it's, it completely like that. That's like pretty much, I mean, I would say the way I would break it down is I would say like maybe the first two issues are your basic slasher fodder, and then the second half of it is just like slams you in a completely different territory. So I guess that's sort of similar to Pocus in a way, in the sense that we subvert expectations like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that was going to be my question is, reading the preview of issue 1 so far as I have, it very much sets up those tropes, those very familiar tropes, without getting into too much spoilers. Obviously, a whole bunch of people end up in a place that they're not supposed to be, and now they're going to be fodder for this person. So I was going to say, how are you working to differentiate this from other horror stories with a similar beginning, so that it's not just, okay, this is their take on like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something along those lines, because it could very easily turn into, okay, they tweaked a couple of things about this story, but it's basically this,
Grandma Leatherface, in other words.
Yeah, exactly. Grandma Leatherface. So without giving too much away, and I'm sure you have, what are some of the things that you're doing to differentiate this from those stories?
I think that it's safe to say that like the second half of that story is going to, I mean, I know I'm repeating myself, but I mean, it's going to just completely slam people in a completely new direction, an unexpected direction, excuse me. And that I know I'm being vague. I'm trying to think of a more descriptive way to put that, but it goes in new territory that I can't quite reveal, that is very, very different from anything you've seen in your typical
All right. And I think, I think what we try to do too, and it always sounds like a cop-out answer, because I feel like if you ask any artist this, they'll probably try to give around about the same answer, but we just try to have fun with it. Yeah. And if you understand what came before you, that's perfect, because we're not trying to be them. We're still writing to be us, but also recognizing that we are influenced by these things. Like even in the notation, whenever we're writing the script, one of the panels, we were doing it, he literally wrote in there, "This is a Texas Chainsaw Massacre reference."
Yeah,
but it's just fun. Like we have Nightmare on Elm Street references coming up. Yeah. We have Exorcist 3. Yes. Yeah, we just have. We are just trying to have so much fun.
Yeah.
And we even, you guys, going back to Pocus 4, whenever you guys got a chance to reference certain things or see certain things in Pocus 4, we actually reference John Carpenter's The Thing in it as well. And we make a pretty hard, direct reference to it too. It's just because that's what influenced us. That's what we love. And I think that, again, the same thing with Pocus, Grandma Chainsaw is also a labor of love, because we're having so much fun, and we want to deliver the best product possible to the people that are reading it. And it's the entire Pocus Hocus team working on this one again, because we feel like if it isn't broke, we're not going to try to fix it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're bringing their A game as always, man. When people see this, I think it's going to be a hit.
Yep.
I hope.
Well, so now how far of a story, how many issues is this? I don't know how, is this going to be like an ongoing? Is this like a mini series? What's your take for length?
As of right now, obviously miniseries. We have it planned out up to issue 4, because there could be with Pocus, it's easy to go on a very linear story and a big journey. With something like this, you don't want to do too much of a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we've talked about other stuff kind of in the same universe as this for, obviously when you get to read this and understand what's going on. But I think as of right now, we're happy just with 4 issues, but time will tell.
Okay. Awesome. And then the the last thing, which is sort of like a meta conversation, is the first couple books were done by Bad Bug. This is now Source Point Press. This is obviously, a shift to a different publisher. What prompted that change, and what were some of, I guess, the benefits from that?
I think something that was big for us. It was one of those where you don't know till you try. And it's our first book. We were very happy with it. So we wanted to submit it just to ultimately extend the reach for it. Bad Bug is there to really help you start. And that's something that we are so grateful for with Mike and everybody over there, because they gave us invaluable information for how to get started, who to contact. And then our letterer and designer, Dave, he's worked on so many books and he's done a lot, especially with Source Point too. And we just straight up asked him, like, do you think this is something that they would want? And Dave said, well, just submit it. And we, again, our own worst critics, we didn't expect to hear anything back. And when we got the email back saying, hey, we want this looks awesome. So now I think the biggest thing is it's exciting to extend the reach of Pocus to other people.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, best of luck to you, obviously moving forward. And it's been a real joy to have followed you from almost day one on this. We spoke right before issue 2 came out. So kind of getting in, pretty much almost on the ground floor, and to follow with you as you go along on this journey, both for Pocus and now with Grandma Chainsaw. It's just a real joy to follow. And I'm looking forward to future stories that y'all tell, whether it's Pocus, continuing that story in that universe, or Grandma Chainsaw, or whatever else it is that you guys come up with in your beautiful twisted brains. You are welcome back anytime, as evidenced by the fact that we broke hiatus for you. My wife is taking care of the newborn right now.
Yeah.
I was like, I have to talk to Alan and Will, even if it's just for like 90 minutes. I'm just doing this thing because you're worth it.
Thank you.
So we'll have links to the Kickstarter. I guess before we formally wrap up, is there anything else in terms of like the Kickstarter incentives? Anything that I've missed? What else can folks get aside from just catching up on issues 1 through 3?
Yeah, so we try to have some other stuff in issue 3's campaign, but this one, like what a lot of people really asked us for, was for metal covers. So we obviously have those in there, hollow foils, the trade paperback, and then I think mine and Will's probably favorite thing is the new T-shirt design that Brian did of the tarot card for the magician that's on it. So we just we're just really happy with how everything turned out, and we hope that everyone loves it. And we do think those metal covers are absolutely gorgeous too. Yeah, just because we did all the covers virgin, just so that way we could take off all the text and everything, and we just have that.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah, the 90s, late 80s, early 90s kid in me looked at that and I was like, ooh,
That's
so
classic.
shiny. Yeah.
very, very shiny. It appealed to the ADHD in me as well. It was like, ooh, shiny thing. Yeah, that's fantastic. Can't wait to get another T-shirt. As I'm rocking the Horus shirt right now during the recording session.
Where's yours, Doc?
What?
It's upstairs. I actually do have it.
The level of disrespect on this podcast. I can't stand you people.
I'm wearing a pink shirt, so I mean it's.
No, Will, it's like wearing your own band's T-shirt. Will, we can't wear it in public.
Oh, we've done that before.
The number of times I've worn a capes on the couch shirt, you kidding me?
I know.
Yeah.
I wear my Pocus stuff all the time. I don't care. No shame.
Promote the hell out of ourselves, Got to get on that grind because capitalism demon has to get fed. Well, Alan and Will, as always, for the folks that don't follow you already, where can they find you on the internet? Like I said, we'll have links to the Kickstarter in the show notes by the time this episode launches. But where else can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter @Chaps of Fury. Another good way to get in contact with us is pocushocuscomic@gmail.com. And obviously, following the Kickstarter, just for any new notifications, or just following us ourselves on Kickstarter, because we do have a lot of exciting stuff coming up for you guys.
We do.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as I go on social media, you can find my Instagram. My Instagram handle is willrad82. And if you're interested in any of my film and video work, it's vimeo.com/willrad. Yeah, of course, as Alan mentioned, the Pocus Hocus comic at gmail.com, and then the Kickstarter also. So
Fantastic. Well, as always, love having you guys on the show. Love talking to you about this stuff. And second and third went phenomenally well and did gangbusters numbers. So looking forward to issue 4. You'll definitely be getting my money. So at least that will add to the growing total. And best of success to y'all moving forward. So thank you, Alan. Thank you, Will. We are going to stay on hiatus for a little bit longer. Rest assured, Doc and I are having conversations about, who we're going to cover and when we're going to come back. So stay tuned. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Capes on the Couch. Our website is still capesonthecouch.com, and you can find all of our episodes there. And if you have a question, you can send us an email at capesonthecouch@gmail.com, or you can join the Discord. I've tried to stay at least somewhat active within the Discord community and active on the social media accounts as much as possible. It is a little hard because there's only so many hours in the day and I only have so many brain cells operating at one time. So I do my best. But thank you all for listening. Yep. And, we will see you again shortly. So for Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko, and we'll see you next time.
I have one thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I forgot. I apologize, Doc.
I'm exhausted. We've only been doing this for 150 something issues. I mean, come on, man. But I just realized I should learn from Alan and Will, especially with Grandma Chainsaw. Maybe it should be Capes on the Plastic Covered Couch.
Okay. Yeah, but then no one can
bring
sit
it
on
back.
it. That's see, you're thinking of it to protect the furniture. I'm an Italian. So when I see plastic covered furniture, that means no one gets to sit on it.
Yep.
That's okay because with everything going on in our lives, you shouldn't stand for it either.
And according to Grandma Hazel, messes cause stresses.
Yes.
This is cause stresses.
Getting our one-liners in there.
There you go. So for Alan and Will and Dr. Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.